so many people in his own party and in society. But aside from that, like, how are you going to pick up that mess and do something? Like, if he was to come in today, he wouldn't be able to negotiate a deal in a couple of months. You'd have to extend Article 50, which would piss a lot of people off.
Or get rid of it.
Or stop Brexit, which you couldn't do. You couldn't stop Brexit after a referendum. You couldn't. You can't hold a referendum and then just not do it. That's not how it works.
Like, I actually agree with that. Like, even though, again, I vote Remain and everything, the whole people's vote thing literally, like, it really annoys me, because that's what the Brexit vote was, a people's vote. Like, do they expect to have, like, okay, let's start again and nobody tell any lies kind of thing? Because that's not going to happen, you know. I kind of feel like that is the vote, you know. We kind of need to just try and make the best deal out of what I think is a bad situation, like. But
well, see, the people's vote, very, very well funded, and the reason it's very, very well funded is because it's essentially an anti-Corbyn thing. It's been used as an anti-Corbyn pressure group, and it's funded by very rich people, very, very rich people, and that's why they have all these. They portray themselves as a grassroots youth campaign, so all their poster boys and girls are all university age, fresh-faced, strategically placed. You know, you have maybe a girl who lives in the border in the north. You know, you have someone that lives in London. You have someone that lives here, and they're all meant to be like the poster campaign, but it's all grassroots. But really, they're all staff members of this organisation. It's heavily funded. So that had a thing like recently where they're driving a big, massive bus around the UK, and they had it outside Queen's recently.
It was outside Stormont for some reason when there was nobody there.
So they
which
have
I didn't
all
understand.
These massively funded campaigns, but it's really an anti-Corbyn thing, and it's very sly what they're doing, because they're getting everybody on board saying, well, we should all have a final vote on the final deal. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then you go, well, what do you mean a final vote? Does that mean Remain's on the table? Well, I mean, everything's on the table. So what they're trying to use this is, you know, to get Remain back on the table. It's not a
vote on the deal. It's a vote to.
Well, it is a vote on the deal, but they want a vote on the deal to be like, yeah, I want that deal, or no, I want to remain in the EU. Instead of yes, I want that deal, or no, I don't want that deal.
Yeah.
Let's go back and get a different deal. So they're very sneaky about where they're in it. So I really don't agree with this whole people's vote thing. And you look at some of the people that are championing it. Alistair Campbell, Blair's spin doctor, who was responsible for spreading lies which led to the Iraq War.
September dossier.
Doctoring the dossiers and on false evidence about weapons of mass destruction, was led to Iraq War and millions of people dying. So I mean, if he's your poster boy, like, I'd question what you're doing, like.
That's one thing as well. In the Brexit kind of campaign before, or the Remain campaign, they sent bloody Tony Blair over here. As
yeah,
like
I think
some
I remember
sort of
reading it that whenever they sent Tony Blair and John Major on a tour around the UK to sway people, I think I might actually read research that suggested that the polls actually went against them whenever they did that, because people were like, Tony Blair and John Major, two awful presidents or prime ministers.
One should be probably in jail for being like a war criminal, but yeah, I just find that hilarious. And even at the time, I was thinking, why are you sending Tony Blair to Northern Ireland to just like chastise us, or, you know, speak down to us and tell us not to leave the EU because, you know, it's going to have grave effects? And I think it will have it. Like, if it's not done correctly, or if we don't get a good deal about it, I think it will be pretty bad for Northern Ireland. But on the flip side, like, it could work out very well as well for Northern Ireland in terms of business. But again, who's that benefiting? It's more like the big dogs, rather than, you know, it's not going to improve the homelessness like we were talking about. And
when you look at you look at kind of the Leave and Remain arguments, and one of the things they always say is, oh, how could you be Leave? Look who you've got on your side, Nigel Farage. And you're like, yeah, but he wants to leave for right-wing arguments, I want to leave for left-wing arguments. But then you look at, like, the Remain side. Who was in the Remain side? Tony Blair, John Major, David Cameron and his whole government. You know,
aye.
There was this, they were all uniting around one cause, that they wanted to stay in the EU to keep rich, because they had business interests in keeping in the EU.
Like, what link did he have? And I even found that when I was doing, like, I went out a couple of days doing that, like the Remain thing, and t-shirt on, handing out leaflets and all. But even a lot of the people doing that were like middle class, you know, so out of touch with like the people on the streets. Like, not that I'm, you know, the man of the people or anything, but, you know, I'm from like a pretty working class background, and, you know, I'm not completely out of touch. I wasn't born with like a silver spoon in my mouth, and
well, that's why, you know, people weren't expecting the vote as well, because they were on this echo chamber where everyone was just like, oh, Remain's going to win. Of course it's going to win. We're, like, why would you not? If you don't vote Remain, you're a racist. And if you try to argue with me, I'm just going to call you a racist, because if you want to leave, you must be a racist.
It's like similar with the Hillary Clinton vote as well in the US.
Oh God, Hillary Clinton, they're talking about she's possibly might run again.
She just needs to stop, like. She's another one that just needs decommissioned, like, and put into a museum somewhere.
General de Chancellor come in and decommission her. Put her beyond use.
And Bill, he needs decommissioned for other reasons, not politically. But yeah, it's such a shambles going on, like, and especially tonight, which is, what date is it? The 12th. Tonight is the night of the long knives, where
so Theresa May's got a confidence vote against her. In all honesty, I think she'll survive it. She's survived much worse, but there could be a surprise. For a bit of crack, I stuck a tenner on her, losing it because it was really high odds. So,
I'd love to know the odds for like who's going to be the next Labour or the Conservative leader. Like, I'd love it if there was like a loophole where like anybody could be like the next Conservative leader. Well, like a wild card, or
like Jeremy Corbyn was. Jeremy Corbyn was a massive wild card, and he was laughed at, and people put him on the ballot paper for the crack. And then he came in and just, oh God, if you had got his odds at the start, probably was about 500 to 1.
Jeremy Corbyn's like a millionaire as well, isn't he?
He's not a millionaire, no.
Is he not?
No. He comes from a very middle class background, like, you know, will be probably upper middle class, like, but he still lives in a wee like small house, like cycles to work and all, like probably not cycles. Now at least that position would be too dangerous, like too dangerous. But cycle to work and all, get the bus in. You know, he's a man of his word. Like he's very down to earth. Like.
It'll be interesting to see if Theresa May does go, but I don't think she'll go either. But like the whole thing as well is people are like, you see people who maybe don't follow politics as much when they're thinking, like all they see is like they're kind of for the underdogs and stuff, and they think, oh, if Theresa May resigns, that's great, you know, get rid of her and all, good riddance, because, you know, for like irrational reasons. But you cut the head of a Conservative Party and like a more poisonous head comes up.
Yeah, there's a very way to put it, the minute of candidates. There's a lot of people. There's no clear front runner. If it was, you were talking 2 years ago, the clear front runner was Boris Johnson by a mile, like but then Michael Gove stabbed him in the back that time. But this time there's no clear front runner, because Jacob Rees-Mogg keeps saying he's not going to go for it, but if he does go for it, he probably would get it. Like, he's
like a Victorian villain as well.
Yeah, he looks like something out of like Batman or something, the villain in Batman.
Yeah, Penguin or something. He I don't think he it'd be disgusting if somebody like that got in. Like, he's just like detestably Tory. Like,
few Tory MPs came out today and said they'd resign the chief whip and leave the party if he was leader, or him and Boris. Like, they probably wouldn't, but they've said they would.
Like, obviously they don't agree. The hard Brexiteers don't agree with Theresa May's deal. But why are they trying to throw the UK in this situation where, like, do they genuinely think that they're going to be able to, like, I don't know, make a better deal than Theresa May's getting? It's not like the EU are saying, oh, it's okay, it's Theresa May asking for this deal. That's why we're not giving her it.
Well, you have to think about it. The EU are trying to make this as completely difficult as possible, and they're trying to make a massive example out of the UK.
Yep.
Why? Because they don't want anyone else to leave. So anybody that had the inklings of like, I really want to leave, there was massive movements growing in like Italy and France for leaving
Holland
the EU.
As well, wasn't there?
Yeah, like France. They still are bubbling up. Like, a lot of countries are going, we want to leave this, the EU. It's not doing us any good. And this is kind of the EU making an example of someone, saying this is what happens when you leave, and the EU will be sitting clapping their hands. Are you sure? Like, you know, giving each other hugs, going, this is working out really well. We've nearly toppled the government, and they may well topple the government because of the Brexit negotiations. Like, so I mean, this is just this isn't hard negotiating should be. It's a mixture of the EU trying to make an example of the UK, but also the Tories being in a terrible position because they're being propped up by the DUP and they're trying to please the DUP.
What do you think of all this, like, scaremongering about, like, Leo Varadkar a few weeks ago or months ago was saying that, oh, if a hard border comes in Northern Ireland, violence will be back in the streets and all this here. Like, I personally think that's a load of shite,
nonsense. The people that talk about violence coming back because of Brexit are completely out of touch with anyone. It's usually British commentators or someone at Dáil or some stupid idiot saying it. It's ridiculous. I mean, even Sinn Féin's coming out and saying, no, there won't be, like, you know. And who are you talking about dissidents? There's about 30 dissidents, you know what I mean? Like,
and nobody, no loyalist is going to come out if there's like a soft border, or, you know, there's no scenario where I can see where somebody is going to come out and think, oh, I'm going to kill somebody in the street because...
the Loyalist Council, I seen the other day, released a statement saying, you know, they're not going to turn to violence or anything, like. But the whole thing about the hard border is a complete scare tactic, and it was being propped up by Sinn Féin over here because they were trying to use it to beat PVP with, but it didn't really work. So they were putting up them posters, hard border brought to you by PVP, DUP.
I seen that was everywhere, but was that not?
They put them up illegally too, so there was complaints that they take them down.
Yeah, I seen that.
So they were using that as a stick to kind of beat us with, but it was ridiculous. Like, there's not going to be a hard border. Who's going to put it up? Like, every single relevant institution has come out and says we don't want it. So the UK government doesn't want it, Irish government doesn't want it, EU doesn't want it. Who's going to put an Irish border up? You can't put an Irish border up. There's 200 entrances and exits of the Irish border. We don't do build a big wall. Like, it's ridiculous. You can't.
There was somebody that walked around, wasn't there? And like ones that weren't even like documented. So like bridges and fields.
Yeah, you can't. You just can't. And I mean, even if someone come in and erected a wall or erected something, there would be civil disobedience and people just take it down.
Yeah, it's not like. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's just scaremongering as well. And you were saying there, it's funny as well, Sinn Féin putting posters up like that when they didn't chirp a word when, like you were saying there earlier, they didn't say a word when the Remain campaign was going on or anything. They were silent.
Yeah, it feeds in that whole echo chamber thing because everybody thought it was going to win, so it was like, I'm not spending any money. It's going to win, so like, you know, even the Remain campaign didn't really do that much of a strong campaign because it was like everybody thought, if anybody knew before that campaign it was going to be a 50-50 vote, there would be a hell of a different campaign. But polls were all saying, Remain's got it in the bag, don't worry lads, don't worry, Remain's got it in the bag, so people were kind of half-assed about it, like.
And if say there was a people's vote and it was 51 or 53% say yes to go, you know, to scrap Brexit, like, I think some people are just to have that arrogance where they think, oh, that's it, done then. You know, everybody's going to accept that Brexit isn't happening now and we'll go back to pre-2016. But no matter what, Brexit has changed, like, the landscape. Like, you know, it's not like we're going to go back to the way things were pre-Brexit and, you know, we're just going to forget about this whole shambles. Like, I would like to see Brexit just scrapped just because of the absolute mess that they're making out of it. But like the deal, it says a lot when that deal that Theresa May brought forward. You had Nicola Sturgeon coming out and saying, oh, Northern Ireland, we want the deal like Northern Ireland because they're getting like an unfair advantage in the UK. But you wouldn't be surprised if Scotland just said, right, we want another referendum. You know, we want
Well, they've still been calling for it, but
who can call that for them?
I'm not too sure.
It's probably Secretary of State, or?
It's probably a similar situation that we have some sort of Scottish Secretary of State calls or whatever, or maybe it's just the British government themselves. But to be honest, the SNP kind of backed off in the whole Scottish independence vote because their strategy was similar to Sinn Féin, that once Brexit hit, they'll call for an independence vote and say this is our way out of it, vote independence and we'll stay in the EU or whatever. Because then the EU actually comes out and says, yeah, if you become independent, you can stay in the EU, no bother. But they actually had to kind of back off that line because at the next election they were kind of hit really hard, and the feedback was that there's more important things at the minute than independence. We need to focus on Brexit, so they kind of backed off that whole independence thing. That's why they haven't probably been calling for independence for a while. And I think, my honest opinion, that I think in 10 years' time, Brexit will be done. There'll be a Labour government in the UK, and the Labour will be implementing these class policies that they couldn't do under the EU, and Northern Ireland will feel the benefit of it. And you know, people will forget about the EU.
Will there be a Northern Ireland in 10 years in your house?
I'd say within 10 years, but definitely within my lifetime, there will be a United Ireland, 100%.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Like how close in your lifetime? Like pensioner Paul, or?
I would say by. Well, you have to think as well. Once the vote's called, if there was a yes,
every 7 years,
yes vote for uni, yeah, it has to happen every 7 years from the Good Friday Agreement. But if there was a yes vote, like, it's not gonna be a case of you wake up the next day and it's United Ireland. those things.
Imagine the transition period
here.
Yeah,
transition period.
Talking about the Brexit
transition period would probably have to